My name is Caroline Kagia. I'm a mom of two. I have a 16-year-old and a 7-year-old. I am a certified addictions professional. I am also in recovery, having struggled with alcohol addiction for 2 decades. I am also the founder and director of Caroline Kagia Wellness Initiative. I formed this initiative out of my passion of helping those who are struggling with chemical and substance abuse. It's a bit of both because I studied addiction counseling and treatment back in 2017. And then I've also been through alcoholism, like I mentioned, for 2 decades. And so for me, it's a passion. It's a passion because I know that so many people are struggling with addiction and they don't know who to talk to. They don't know how to go about it. Many have been to rehab like I have been, and they come out and they relapse and they go back and they relapse. So the reason I formed this initiative is to try and understand this also as I seek to help others to understand what addiction is all about, what causes it, and not only the people who are in addiction, their families also, because we are told that alcoholism is a family disease, and it is not a spectator sport. When one person of the family is in, the entire family is in trouble.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing I'll say for sure is that thanks or no thanks to COVID, many people have gotten into addiction, not only of alcohol or hard drugs, but different kinds of addiction. There's pornography, there's gambling, because of loneliness and depression, like you have said. But that's not the way to go about it. For me, I normally advise people to seek help while you can. Unfortunately, many people who are sinking into addiction are always in denial. You'll have people telling you that they have noticed that you have a problem, but you are stuck in your head and saying you can control it. Yet it reaches a point that you're unable to control it. So, one test I normally give people to find out whether you're struggling with addiction is called the CAGE test. CAGE. CAGE. C, I'll break it down. C stands for cut down. Have you tried to cut down and you've been unable? A stands for anger. Have you been angry at yourself or have people been angry at you because of your levels of consumption of alcohol, for example? G is guilt. Do you feel guilty every time you open a bottle or every time you take up a cigarette or every time you take up a drug of your choice? And E is for eye opener. In Kiswahili, it's called kutoa lock. Are you those people who wake up and the first thing you do is either finish up with what you had bought last night or you go to the bar or to the wines and spirits to imbibe? If you have suffered from any of those abbreviations, then you are in trouble. Another reason, like you mentioned, is loneliness. Many people during these festivities are left alone, either because you separated with a loved one or something just went off somewhere. So you find yourself getting caught up. And the unfortunate thing with getting caught up in substance use during the holidays is when, the festivities don't last forever. They're from 24th to say 1st. From 2nd, life is back to normal. So you sink into depression. And unfortunately, many people who sink into depression are unable to come out. So what do? You wallow deeper and deeper into something that could have been resolved much earlier. So there's always a way out. Another thing is that many people don't have support systems. What is a support system? A support system comprises of people who are close to you, who you can be honest with when things are thick. But many people choose not to. They choose to keep things to themselves. And that is why also, you see, there's a ripple effect. There's addiction, there's depression, there's suicide, there's so much going on. But there's always a way around if only people could just agree to be honest with themselves. For me, as Caro, I have struggled with all of these things. I've had my fair share of drinking and lapses. This is something I've not talked about before, but I've had my fair share of lapses. But the most important thing is that when you lapse, is not to stick in the mud. You get up very quickly, dust yourself, and start again. For me, I'm fortunate. I have a very supportive family who have stood with me even in the thick of things. They've refused to give up. And because they have seen that there's potential in me. And I also got into addiction counseling because I see potential in addicts. Many people have been written off by their people. And so they just continue sinking into this thing until they die. But imagine if me as Caroline, I'm seated here having this discussion, there is hope. There is hope. It doesn't matter how long you've been in addiction. It doesn't matter. There is hope. You just need to learn how to pick yourself up, look for somebody you can speak to, and start again. It doesn't matter how many times you've fallen, as long as you're able to pick up yourself and start again. Bora your brain is working, your mind is together, somehow, God will make for you a way and you will rise up. Women are particularly prone to getting into addiction and not being able to come out. Scientifically, it is proven that women get emotionally attached to things. And that is why you'll find it's easier for a man to stop drinking than for a woman. Why? Because it's that emotional attachment that as we give to things. For men, it's a head thing. For women, it's a heart thing. My passion is particularly for the female. Why? Because it affects our reproductive health. Using myself as an example, I missed my menses for a whole year, 2016. I was not sexually active at the time, but it was because of my level of alcohol intake. I was also prone to cancer, but God saved me from that because I was also a very heavy smoker, doing up to 40 sticks a day. Again, God saved me from that. Not because I am anything to write home about, it's just the mercies of God. And then if you're a lady in childbearing stage, for goodness sake, please, alcohol is not for you. I've had 2 miscarriages back to back. Prior to my daughter who is here now, I've had 2 miscarriages back to back because of my levels of drinking. There's a woman right now who's looking at me and saying, but my drinking levels are not that bad. But how do you know that you're not the next victim? I never thought I'd be a victim. For me, I started drinking very casually at the age of 19. It has taken me 20 years, almost 21, to battle this thing, and I've not completely battled it because addiction is something we are always in recovery. You will never say you are recovered. We are always in recovery because for some people it's an hour at a time. For some people it's a day at a time. It's a step-by-step process. And so I normally like reaching out to such women and giving them hope and telling them you can come out of it. There are ways I can show you how to beat addiction, especially as a woman. Because like I've said, it's a heart thing, not a mind thing. So if they could reach out to me, I would be able to help them in one way or another. But before we even ever interact, I want you to know that you're bigger than this thing. You're bigger than this thing. You're able to walk away from the situations that are tearing you down. It could be a broken relationship, a broken marriage. It could be loss of a job, loss of anything, loss of a child. But there's always a way out. In Africa, women don't talk about their struggle with alcoholism. Why? Because there's a stigma associated with women and alcohol. African women are told, it's associated with prostitution, if I can put it that way. If you're an African woman and you're struggling with alcohol, then you must be a prostitute. And that is why you'll find very few women coming out. I was not a prostitute. I just had a problem with alcohol. And I've been beating it every day of my life for the past so long. So there's no shame in coming out and speaking about it. There's no shame in coming out and seeking help. Because there is help. I am living proof by the mercies of God that there is help if you reach out. But unless you reach out, you will die in your pain, you will die in your addiction, and you'll have lost the purpose that you were created for on this earth. I would ask her to reach out. I would ask her to reach out to somebody. There must be somebody in her life she can speak to. Many people fear going to counselors, but there must be somebody somewhere in her circles who has noticed she has a problem. Imagine there's always somebody who will know you have a problem. Always. But if you are in denial, nobody can rescue you from your own denial. But there's somebody in your close circles, believe it or not, who wants to reach out to you and help you, but only if you will accept that you have a problem. The help is available, help is there, but you need to stop being ashamed of the fact that you're struggling with whatever sort of addiction you're struggling with. You need to be able to stand up, put up your head and walk strong. Many people, by the way, know that you're struggling. It's only that they're not telling you. But there's somebody somewhere who has reached out to you. That person who has reached out to you, reach out back to them. And that is the person who will hold your hand until you feel strong enough to walk on your own. Interesting enough, I had known for a few years because I lost friends. I started losing friends. I started losing friends at the age of 21. That time I was studying overseas. I was to do a degree in advertising, multimedia, and broadcasting. I started losing friends almost into the onset of my drinking. But for me, I started realizing there was a problem in 2007 because now I couldn't hold down a job. I would quit. I would just quit. I feel today the human resource has looked at me funny. So I wait for my salary to check in. I switch off my phone and I'm off. And I was not fired. I fired myself. But the culmination of it came now in 2017. 2017, I hit rock bottom completely. I had just come out of a very toxic relationship. I had quit my last job again. I was not fired. I quit. And now I started selling stuff. And I sold everything you can think of selling. The only thing I didn't sell was my small TV because it was those TVs with mgongo at the back. I sold even my shoes. I sold my wardrobe doors. I sold my gas. I sold so many things. And that's when I realized now I've hit rock bottom. And at that point is when I decided to seek help because I'd become so suicidal. I was beyond suicidal, as in I couldn't imagine how my life, I couldn't imagine. For me, I had hit it. It was the end for me. And I always advise people, don't allow yourself to reach there. Me, I'm a walking miracle. I advise people, don't allow yourself to hit rock bottom. Many people hit rock bottom and rock bottom is 6 feet under. Just recently, we buried somebody. We buried my son's dad because his rock bottom took him to 6 feet under. And that's where many people are headed. And I hate to see people in that space because for me, I'm still going through the motions of trying to understand why someone would allow themselves to reach that point. But when I think about it, I really don't think that such people allow themselves. I think it's because you reach a point where you feel there's no turning back, or you feel you're stronger than your addiction, you can beat it. But majority of people cannot. And so for me, my passion there is quite intense. I think you can sense it. My passion is for those who are struggling. Imagine there's help. As long as you're breathing, as long as you're under the sound of my voice, there's hope. Help is available. You just need to reach out to somebody. It doesn't matter who. Reach out to somebody and tell them you're struggling. But again, it has to be somebody who you feel that you trust. From my experience as a parent in recovery, and also from my experience as a parent whose children have seen their mother struggle with alcoholism, I took it upon myself to start educating my kids very early about alcohol and drugs. Because as parents, if we hide our heads under the sand, what are we doing to these children? People my age are struggling with this thing. What do we expect these ones who are exposed to all sorts of social media? What do you think they are exposed to? So the earlier, the better. My 6-year-old started learning at 3 years about drugs and alcohol. She's very aware. My son has seen it for himself through his mother, and he hates it with everything in his being. So I advise parents, start speaking to your kids as early as they can understand, or they can see something and ask you, "Mommy, Daddy, what is this?" And stop drinking in the house if you have children. If you have to drink, go and drink outside. Come home when you're done. But please don't drink where your children can see. Don't smoke where your children can see. That is you're creating a negative effect, and it will come back to you because these are the same children you'll end up looking for money to take them for treatment. Yeah, this is something you could have avoided. But many parents don't see that. So what do? If they're not drinking at home, when they take their kids out, they are busy imbibing as their children are drinking sodas. Yet your children can see what you're doing. So why shouldn't they follow what you're doing when they're much older? So please, as a parent, respect, keep boundaries. If you need to do what you're doing, do it far from your children. Please let them grow up as children, as innocently as they can, but also speak to them from a very young age. It will make a big difference. Even if they try at some point to drink or to do drugs, at least at the back of their minds, they will know that mom or dad taught me from a young age that this and this is bad. But don't preach water and drink wine. There's nothing you're doing there. Stick to one lane. Tell them what you feel you need to tell them, and also even you play your part as a parent. I'll use my own experience. It reached a point with my son, I had to tell him that I'm struggling with alcoholism. I had to tell him I'm struggling with alcoholism because he would find bottles. Surely. He would find bottles and he would ask me, Mommy, what is this? And then because of my embarrassment, I would go into denial. Then we start fighting. Sometimes it was fighting verbally, sometimes it was fighting physically. But at some point I had to tell him, I am struggling with this. And the time I'm telling him I'm struggling with it, I'm not having a bottle in my hand. I am telling him now, and today I'm feeling I'm a bit stronger so that we can have a conversation. So that even if he wants to engage me, I'm able to tell him something. And you know what? Today, as we speak, we can actually sit down with him and he tell me, yeah, Mommy, now I understand that you had a problem, but I'm glad you're better. But if your children can see you staggering home and yet you're still trying to hide, you are going to make those children resent you sooner or later. I guarantee it. Sooner or later, those children are going to resent you. But if you as a parent can sit down, because God is the one who has given you those children, and sit down with them and explain to them what is going on with you when you're sober, they'll understand it. And you never know, God could use those children to walk you through the process. Imagine, even your own children, they are the little angels in your life. They are the little blessings in your life that you've been given. But you need to be honest with them, not hiding things, yet they can see. You know, they're not blind. You need to be as honest. This generation of children that we are raising is a generation that we need to be very careful with because they see things and they do. So if you're hiding and lying to your children, my friend, you're the one who will pay the cost. Be honest with them. Be straight with them. They're like little grown-ups. Speak to them. They'll understand. Yeah.